War Thunder, and the mess that is. With top tier being slowly power creeped by supersonic aircraft, a new weapon had to be implemented to combat these new speeds, as it was quickly discovered that spraying as much lead downrange would only take a pilot so far. As such, missiles are now a thing. Especially with 1.97 bringing deadlier opponents, these lethal boomsticks are more dangerous than ever. So, how are you meant to dodge these looming dictators of the skies? With all this being said, let's go over how to dodge missiles in Missile Thunder 1.97. Disclaimer: these are just my methods for dodging missiles. You can dodge them in really any other way you'd like, so long as it works, and if you find another way to dodge them that isn't shown in this video, feel free to share them. But these are just the experiments that myself and Goldey ran to see what the best way of dodging missiles was. I initially started out in the F4C Phantom, with Goldey in the F4E. We wanted to test how you would dodge an AIM-9J from within 2 kilometers, as that's really the lethal firing range. We initially just tried turning hard to one side, but as you can see, that only worked to varying degrees of success. And this leads me to talk about another common strategy that you should not try with the F4C, which is climbing to altitude. You see, at low altitude, you actually have a chance of dodging missiles. You can turn pretty decently well, but at high altitudes, not so much. You see, missiles aren't affected as badly as the Phantom when you're at altitude. Now, some other planes can fare pretty well, but generally, missiles are affected much less severely than other aircraft with thinner air. At this point, Goldey had the idea to pull some negative G's to get the missile to go downward, and then pulling positive G's at the very end to try and get the missile to overshoot. And actually, for the first test, this one worked. The missile did track in the vertical, which was quite interesting. I did not expect it to do this. Then, to my detriment, we performed a second test at much closer range, and this one actually didn't work. The Phantom isn't able to change direction quick enough to throw the missile off. And I believe one of the main reasons for this is that the missile has a lot more maneuverability and agility when it is still burning propellant, but once that propellant runs out, it starts to slow down due to drag and other aerodynamic forces. This is why the missile wasn't able to track me in the vertical from earlier at longer range. The propellant ran out, and the moment I baited it into the vertical, it bled off all of its airspeed and wasn't able to keep up. For this next test, we had Goldey in the MiG-21 this time, and we were using rocket pods to see if it acted like flares. Prior to 1.97, rocket pods acted like flares and were able to throw off missiles. However, this seems to have been fixed because, despite the extensive testing we did, no matter how many rockets I fired off, the missiles weren't deterred. They kept tracking, and I had to evade using very sharp turns. For this final test, I wanted to see if the sun really threw off infrared missile tracking. Surprisingly enough, it doesn't, at least for the R-60s. The R-60 was able to lock onto me very, very easily, even when flying directly into the sun. Apparently afterburners are just that much more juicy for it. Now, this made me curious at how the R-60 was able to track me even though the sun was there. And as you can see with the AIM-9Js, if the sun is even inside the larger circle, which it shouldn't be locking onto if that's the case, the AIM-9J latches onto the sun, and even maintains that lock outside the circle, which makes 0 sense, but it's the same thing, even with the moon, for some odd reason. Now, I don't know if it's actually correct. I don't recall the moon having a crazy infrared reading, but if I'm wrong, feel free to tell me. And with that, I wanted to wrap this video off with a list of dangerous aircraft you should keep your eye out for on the battlefield. Starting off with the new F4 Phantoms, the F4E and the F4EJ. With the outbreak of 1.97, you will be seeing these a lot. They're fast, their missiles are the AIM-9Js, which can pull 20G overload. The cannon is extremely powerful, it is the M61 Vulcan. And, again, you'll see it quite a lot. Next up is the two MiG-21 variants, the German MiG-21 MF and the Soviet MiG-21 SMT. They are fast, extremely agile, and have extremely powerful R-60s. And these missiles turn off the rack extremely quickly, which they actually turn faster than the AIM-9Js, although they can pull 18G overload instead of 20. And you'll see these a bit less now, as everyone flocks over to the Phantom hype. Then, going over to the British, we have the Phantom FGR-2. It is much, much faster than the F4E and EJ with much better engines. The AIM-9Ds are a pretty solid missile, and although they can only pull 16 Gs, their thrust lasts for much longer, giving it the edge against other contemporary aircraft and other missiles. And unfortunately, these are also a bit less frequent, but they're still extremely dangerous to fight against. And finally, we move on to the scourge of all top-tier aircraft, the I-15R, capable of firing 152mm high-explosive OF-540 shells. It has a fire extinguisher to put out those fires that you tend to light them on. And on top of that, what really makes it dangerous is the fact that its shells are guided by the literal hand of Stalin. And these shells are able to pull 120G overload, and their maximum speed is light speed. This knows no bounds. Kill on sight. And that's all I've got. I just want to take a sec to say thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy this, leave a like, and do feel free to subscribe, as I'm going to be trying to get more of these videos out. Probably not this type of nature. I know I've made tutorials in the past, but I am not the best at them. I'm just going to say right here, this video took me literally ages to make, so I do seriously hope you guys appreciated it, because if not, then my effort will have gone right down the drain. Oh boy. But anywho, I know I didn't brush over flares on this video, and I feel like that's really self-explanatory. I've also gone over it on a previous video. And on top of that, I also plan to make a whole separate video on how to use flares, because I see a lot of people at top tier just not using them correctly, so I should have that out soon. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.